Now that you know a little bit more about Scratch, it's time to get started with some important programming concepts. Event-driven programming is very important in today's age of mobile and touchscreen devices. In this lesson, you'll learn how to use events to create and synchronize action in your programs. Now that you've completed your Introduction to Scratch tutorial, it's time to get started putting some blocks together. First off, I'd like to point out that my cat, who is always the sprite that shows up whenever you start a new program, doesn't have a really great name. Right now my cat is named Sprite1. That's fine for now because I only have one sprite. However, once I get Sprite 2, Sprite 3, Sprite 4, etc., it's going to be difficult to keep track of who is who. Right now, I am going to change the name of my sprite to Cat. And I do that by just simply overwriting Sprite 1. That is not the most original name. However, your names for your sprites shouldn't be original or unusual because you always want to be able to tell who your sprites are. And my sprite's a cat, so I feel pretty good about this. To get started, you know that the cat knows how to do certain things. The cat knows how to move a certain number of steps. The cat knows how to turn. The cat can do a lot of things. Notice there is no command, however, for something like walk. You would have to create walk out of things that the cat knows how to do in the right sequence. You used this when you created the dance for the cat. The cat was able to perform a dance based on you giving it a sequence of motions that it already knows how to do. One that you may not have used is this one right here. Our cat knows how to glide to a random position. That's kind of fun. I can actually execute this block. I don't have an event yet, but I can single click on this block. And sure enough, my cat glides to what seems to be a random position. As I continue to click, my cat continues gliding around the screen, supposedly randomly. If you're curious about where the cat is on the coordinate plane, Scratch gives us the option to use these reporter blocks. Most of the palettes have these reporter blocks. A reporter block simply reports a value. The value could be a number, like it is in this case. It's going to be the number that shows the X or the Y position. It might be a true or false. It might be a text string. We don't know. But these nice little ovals are our reporter blocks, and we can actually put a check mark, and I can spy on my cat. So I can actually see the glide, and I can see the reporter blocks reporting the value. When I'm programming certain movements, that's really helpful to be able to see. When it's no longer helpful and when I don't really need to see those values anymore, I can simply uncheck those two boxes. All right, and now you'll notice that my cat has actually gone to kind of a random place on the screen. A nice trick for that is to know that you can always get this block right here, go to X, 0, Y, 0, to bring your cat back to its original position. This is very helpful if you accidentally program your cat to go off the screen completely and you don't even know where the cat went. You can always come back, program it to go to 0, 0, and your cat will return to the center of the screen. Sometimes it's helpful just to leave this block all by itself up in the corner of your scripting area so that you can always recenter your cat. You learned in the tutorials that we can have events right here that can trigger action in our programs. They showed you the green flag. So for example, when the green flag is clicked, that event can trigger some sort of motion. So I'm actually going to get this block back again, and just to show you that I can now click the green flag, and there goes my cat. Glides to a random position. You also learned about sounds, that you can program certain sounds, and many sprites come with sounds that can be programmed. Our cat comes with a meow. All right, so what I could do is I could add the start sound, and now when I click the green flag, he glides and meows. If I wanted multiple meows, seems logical that I could just add 3 of these and click the green flag and hear 3 meows. Let's see what happens. Well, that's strange. I only heard 1 meow. What we need to do here, if I want 3 separate meows, I actually need to use this command here. Scratch will execute any blocks that can be executed simultaneously exactly that way. and sounds can be played at the same time. And so when I have 3 of these blocks right here, it is simultaneously executing all 3 of them. And so I only hear 1 meow. That's not really what I wanted. So I'm going to replace those 3 with these. Play sound until done. That is forcing it to wait until the sound has played until the next sound starts. Let's see how that changes our program. There we go, meowing away. What if I wanted my cat to glide and meow at the same time? Well, let's see how we could do that. It follows that when I click the green flag and that event triggers some action, that event could actually trigger more than one action. So let's see how that happens. I'm going to go get another green flag script, and I'm actually going to add my triple meow to that. So now when I click the green flag, my cat glides and meows at the same time. So one event triggers multiple actions. Now you try it. Program your cat to both move and play sounds at the same time. All right, you've had the chance to experiment with using a single event to trigger multiple actions, to synchronize those actions with the event. Now let's move on. We are going to add a new sprite. I am going to choose a sprite from the gallery. And when I do that, I can see all kinds of fun sprites that I could choose from. I'm going to choose this cute little thing here. This is Dot. Dot comes with a sprite name already, and that's fine. It's close to dog, and I've only got 2 sprites right now, so that should be an appropriate name. I just want to check some things out about my sprite. It looks like it has 4 costumes, and as I kind of click through those costumes, you can see that it would create a nice little animation. You could cycle through those costumes. I can also see that Dot comes with a bark. It is a dog after all, and so a bark seems appropriate. All right, I have no code yet for Dot. What I'd actually like to do is kind of position my sprites a little bit more logically. We're going to learn how to make our sprites interact with each other. And so to do that, they should kind of be close to each other on a screen. All right, and we can look at the position of the X and the Y coordinates. So I can see that that is Dot's position. I can add to that, I can add the cat's X and Y position. All right, so again, my reporter blocks are doing their job, reporting back the value of the X and Y positions. However, it does take up a lot of screen area. So for right now, I'm actually going to remove those. All right, so we want our sprites to interact with one another. We've talked about how we can use the green flag event to trigger multiple actions. So let's use the green flag to tell both the cat and the dog how we want them to start out in our program. So events, green flag clicked. For the cat, I'm going to go to looks. And it's always a good idea to tell sprites how we want them to start off in our program, where we want them on our screen, whether we want them shown or hidden. And right now, if you weren't aware, there are 2 commands that come in the looks palette. We can show and we can hide. We can show again, we can hide. All right, and so you can actually decide what shows and what hides, and you can program that to happen the way you want it. But right now, when the green flag is clicked, I want my cat to show. There it is. All right, for Dot, Dot's going to be a little bit more of a surprise. So when the green flag is clicked, Dot is going to hide. All right, so one event, 2 different things we want to happen with our sprites. Let's see if it works. Perfect. Just what we want. And I mentioned, I'm going to go back to the cat. I mentioned that it's usually a good idea if you think that your sprite is going to move from its original position, it's a really good idea to add that to the beginning of the program. So I can see that my cat is actually at 76.0. That is very close to 0. And so this block right here, go to, is actually already showing that particular position. And I'm just going to add that into the program because, like I said, if I think my cat is going to move and if I want it to come back to its original position at some point, I want to add that in there. All right. Also, knowing that my cat is going to move, there's another property that I want to set. I'm going to actually set the rotation style. I have a choice of having my cat able to rotate left-right, in other words, to flip to the left or to the right, or not rotate at all, or actually rotate in 360 degrees, which would allow the cat to go upside down and all of that. I'm going to choose left-right for now. So I've set the starting position, I have set the rotation style for my cat, and I've told my cat that I want it to show at the green flag. So even if I were to move my cat somewhere else right now, just let me get rid of these. When I click the green flag, boom, my cat is exactly back in the position that I want. All right, so let's start a little dialogue here. We are going to tell our cat to say hello. Great, wonderful. However, there's no one to talk to. So now is when we want Dot to show up, our dog. And of course, we want to trigger some action, so we need an event. So we go over here to the events palette, but I don't see anything that's really going to let me just add this right in the sequence of commands that I'm using, except for this one right here. All right, I can make a broadcast. I am going to call my broadcast exactly what I want it to do. I want this broadcast to be the event that triggers Dot to show. So I am simply going to call it show Dot. All right. Now, Dot. Now there's an event that says when I receive that broadcast, the one that I just made, show Dot. And guess what we want to happen here? No surprise. Now we want Dot to show. And while we're at it, why don't we have Dot say hello? How about hello, my name is Dot. What's yours? All right, let's see what we've got so far. Green flag. There we go, just what we wanted. Dot shows up right on time and introduces herself or himself. All right, so we're gonna go right back to the cat. Right now, it seems logical. The cat is facing away from the person or the animal that it's talking to. And so really what we want is we want to point our cat towards Dot. All right, so we're just going to point towards. And how about if we add in, my name is Cat. Okay, all right, good conversation so far. Let's see what happens when we click the green flag. Uh-oh, if you saw what happened, they were speaking at the same time. Somehow, the cat didn't know that it should wait until Dot was done introducing itself before introducing itself. So let me show you why that happened. In our broadcast events, there are two of them. One is just to make the broadcast in case we want other things to happen at the same time. But if we don't, if we want to force the script to wait until the action has been completed before moving on, then we use the show and wait. Now let's see if that fixed it. There we go. All right, it's all happy in the neighborhood. So why don't we finish out with them making their sounds, making their animal sounds. So I'm just going to add here that the cat should meow until the meow has completed. And then it would be nice, after the cat meows, if the dog barked. And so we'll go ahead and use a broadcast and wait. This is a new broadcast. And again, we want to name our broadcasts according to exactly what they do. And this one is dog bark. All right, or I could have named it dot bark, but we know who it is. And of course, dot, when dot receives that particular broadcast, dot will bark. All right, let's see what happens. Great. All right, and how about one last action? How about if they both jump up and down because they're so happy to know each other now? So let's see. We can create a final broadcast. This time, if we want them both to jump up and down at the same time, we don't need to wait. We are going to broadcast a new message called jump. All right, and since Dot is making the broadcast, Dot also needs to know what to do when that broadcast is received. So what should Dot do when she receives jump? Well, we know that a jump is a change in the y coordinate, up and down. All right, so we can go ahead and say to change y by 10, and then it would make sense to change it again by negative 10. So up 10, down 10. All right, great. And we know that we want the cat to do the same thing, that when it receives the broadcast jump, it should do the change in y by a positive number followed by changing y by a negative number. And a nice little trick is that you can actually just drag a script onto another sprite, and when you click, it is there. Now, it's not very nice and neat. I'm actually going to use my right-click option, and I'm going to clean up these blocks because it's getting a little messy. So now I see that when the cat receives jump, it will change y by 10 and then by negative 10. Let's try it. Well, I didn't see a jump, did you? All right, well, I'm going to tell you that they did jump. They just did it so fast you couldn't see it. So how can we control that? How can we control the fact that it's jumping up and down too fast for us to tell the difference? Well, that word control brings us to a very handy palette right here. And what we're going to do is we are just going to add in, it doesn't have to be a full second, we're just going to add in a half a second wait. All right, and then of course I need to go back over here and do that also. Oops, I lost it. All right, half second wait. All right, and I'm gonna clean out my blocks again because again, it's just getting a little messy. There we go. All right, so let's take a look at the whole program. There they go. Now, you are going to create your own animation. You can model it off of this one, but I am more than sure you can make something way more creative. That jump leaves a little something to be desired. We could certainly add some finesse to the jump. Certainly you can go in and start adding backdrops. We know that you can have events that trigger a backdrop change. You can have better motions, better dialogue between our characters. You can add in better sounds and certainly better backdrops because we don't even have one of those. You will have the opportunity to do that. So just remember that the handy tips are to always name your sprites as soon as you add them so that you know what they are. To get into the habit of setting properties of your sprites the way that you want them to start, to make sure that you can always get them back there. So setting their position, setting their rotation style, saying whether or not they show or hide, and to always name your broadcasts according to what they do. That way it's really easy to call them when you need them. All right, have fun making your own animated video.